Hello, it's me Andy from Blitz Gaming. Hope you're all having a great day. It's freezing in the UK, snow's landed, and I hate snow. so yeah, it's going to be a cold week, all I can say. So we've finally done those benchmarks. AMD 7600 versus Intel's 13600K. So yeah, battle of the 6 cores. Gaming wise, they're very, very similar. In some cases, I have seen where the AMD has still excelled. But otherwise, most of the time it's similar. Now, the graphic cards we've got, they're budget cards, so we're not going to be taking the processors to the limit. If you want to do that, you need to buy a lot high-end graphic card, 3080, 4080, so and so upwards, to break the bottleneck. But yeah, what we're testing, fine. We've got BAR on everything, so maxing everything out, so everything's okay there. Latest version of Windows 11 on both systems, and all the latest updates on the games. Now, the only one problem I had was, before we look into it and before you start moaning at me, on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, as I'm going through them, the game version has changed. There's nothing I can do about that. You can't really play it offline. It doesn't allow you to play it offline and play. So it's like it constantly kept updating. Now, I've read the patch notes. There's no optimizations. It's just bug fixes where it crashes in other silly stuff and changes to the UI and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've checked and checked again the benchmark from one system to another system, and they are all very similar. So nothing's suddenly gone, oh, that's got 20% extra frames or so and so. If it did that, then I'd have to just scrap the benchmark altogether and do it all again, and hopefully they don't update. See, this is a problem when new games come out, they're updating on a daily basis. It's like hard to stay with it. Now there's only two patches, sets of patch notes, but the game's updated at least 20 times. So, like I said, again, there's nothing I do about it. I'll show you the benchmarks, and it's really up to you. Okay. Yes, it's not going to be 100%, but as I said, the benchmarks are not really one-sided. So on any of the systems, so it's not really changed, and it doesn't say there's no optimizations, as I said earlier, in the patch notes. So hopefully fine. Otherwise, everything else is okay. Should be fine. It's all at 1080p. No VSync is normal. Everything's at full screen. And we go from there. Right, let's get it on, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, test systems are more or less identical. Only major thing is the CPU is different, and motherboard, and the coolers. The reason I got the Corsair one in the Corsair case, because it was too big, wouldn't fit. So I used the Lian Elite. And again, as I said earlier, Call of Duty, it changed 3 times, but it didn't really make no difference to the FPS, because it's just bug fixes, no optimizations. Otherwise, we've got all the normal graphic cards, now including Intel Arc, Nvidia 1650, AMD's RX 6500 XT, and AMD RX 600, and we will be adding Nvidia 2060 to that in a few weeks. Okay, let's get on. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In this game, we just use the presets, high, ultra, nothing else. We're in ultra now from high, and you can see AMD's 7600X is 2 or 3 frames ahead of Intel's 13600K. In high mode, the 13600K 1 ounce down with the RX 6500 XT, and now switch over to Ultra, and now it's only 3 frames ahead in ultra mode. AMD's RX 7600, just seen Intel's Arc, and it's basically equal, if 1 or 2 frames in favour of Intel's 13600. And now AMD's RX 6600, and you see it's now in favour of AMD's 7600X. Okay, I got the chart up. I've also included Intel's 12600K, which we tested a little while ago for Windows 11 as well. So we go back to the high settings for Nvidia 1650 and AMD's RX 6500 XT. There's about 3-4 frames between a lot of them, nothing major. But obviously when we go to the Intel 12th gen and 13K, some reason the AMD's RX 6500 XT suddenly goes up 20 odd frames. I can't work out why. No idea. That's a bit beyond me, that. Can't quite work out how that's suddenly flying up. We go to Ultra. Yeah, this time a 1650 wins on the Ultra for the budget by about 7 frames, and you've got a bit of a bit there where we do get that every now and then on that card. Again, the 6500 XT, yeah, it's not so cheap, but it's just a funny card. Can't understand where it wants to be. It's like you built off a card. It doesn't seem to be consistent really on anything. Then we go up to Intel Arc in the middle of the pack. Don't do too badly. Yeah, it should be up there really with the RX 6600, or even faster, the RX 6600. On paper, it should be quicker. Again, drivers for Intel. Now, these are not the latest drivers. They haven't released a Super Ultra for DirectX 9, but this is actually DirectX 11, so it ain't going to make no difference. So yeah, we're in there, in the 50s. We've got 10 frames more than what obviously the budget cards were doing, so bit of an odd one. And obviously we finish off with the RX 6600, which goes up to the 80s, so there's no problem. Again, at the moment, the best budget card on the market is the RX 6600, because you can get it now as low as £200, and obviously it's always at the front end, no matter how you look at it. You can say, oh, okay, 1650 is cheaper. Yeah, only by about £20. So I'd rather spend the extra 20 quid and get the RX 6600. Battlefield 5. So it's going to be at 1080p, ultra settings on all cards. No HDR or ray tracing turned on. Nvidia 1650. Throughout the card, so at 1080p ultra preset. Runs well, we're in the 50s. I mean, you can tweak it a little bit to get it over 60 if you want to play multiplayer. Bring it down a notch. Yeah, just to play the multiplayer and make sure you have no freezing at all running. But otherwise, yeah, 1650 runs fine playing Battlefield 5. On 6500 XT, Intel's 1300 600K, pulls ahead about 5-6 frames a second over AMD 7600X. There is a 1% load difference when we're watching it here, but I actually take the frame rates on the last battle in the square. I reset it all at the square and go from there when there's loads of gunshots going off. But otherwise, yeah, they're pretty similar. At the moment, it's favouring the Intel setup. Take note for CPU's temperature. We know the AMD 7600X is designed to be up to like 90C. And we know the Intel chip is also runs very hot, but they obviously we're not doing a city bench test, but they're way cooler than what they would be. And obviously memory, not quite sure why the AMD system is using more memory than the Intel memory. Don't know. Again, it's a bit odd on some things what to run. Switch over to Intel Arc. And again, you see on the Intel system, it's basically got about another 6 frames, 5-6 frames higher than the AMD system. Otherwise, everything else looks the same. Again, AMD systems use more memory. I don't know if that's down to because it's DDR5 on the AMD system, not DDR4. We're not going to run a DirectX 12 test for Arc because this game just runs awful in DirectX 12. Don't know why, it just does. Even though the frame rate is extremely higher on Arc for DirectX 12, it just runs awful. Okay, we finished with with the RX 6600. Again, very similar frame rates, couple of frames in it each side. So yeah, it's depending on what graphic card you have, seems to work slightly better on one or the other. I decided to add the DirectX 12 version of Battlefield 5. You see it's got a very high frame rate, but you can see at the same time it's constantly stuttering. That's on both platforms, and it's not just the Arc graphic card, it does it on the other graphic cards as well. So I just believe it's down to the game. It is just awful. It's a pity really, because the frame rate is extremely way higher for the Arc. It's nearly double the frame rate over DirectX 11, but it just runs awful.
Behalten Sie die Fenster da im Auge. Amerikanische Infanterie vor Ort. Schröder, an das MG-Feuer.
Well, we've got the chart up, and you can see at the end of the day that Arc running in DirectX 12 flies, but that 1% low is a nightmare. We've got like 53 frames there, but that's because we took it out the end. You saw it when it's running. It's basically down into single digits. It's awful. It's constantly freezing. So we go to DirectX 11, and the RX 6600 wins. 90 odd frames. Well, basically all platforms is basically very similar. On the 13600K, yeah, we do a bit of a drop, and then we got the Arc coming in around 60-64 frames in the middle. Then we go down to the budget cards. As always, 1650 and the RX 6500 XT. Banning out at the bottom. There's similar performances, and we're going from what the bottom 1650 45 frames up to basically on the 7600X CPU, we're getting a good on the RX 6500 XT up to 60, so that's a bit of a good bonus boost with that CPU. And depending on what platform you have and what graphic card you have, it seems to benefit one or the other on some systems. I mean, majority of the time, the RX 6600 wins hands down. Cyberpunk, we basically use medium or ultra, FSR on or off, ray tracing on basic settings for Arc and RX 6600. So Nvidia 1650, medium presets, no FSR. So yeah, we've got a lousy frame rate even on medium. Yeah, we could go down to low. See how it goes. We turn on the FSR and straight away we get between 10 and 15 frames a second, and what system you're on. AMD's RX 6500 XT, and you see we're basically equal on both systems, nothing's running away from each other on standard mode. We turn on FSR, and on the AMD system we're gaining 20 frames a second and only about between 5 and 10 on the Intel system. So yeah, FSR certainly works on the AMD system way better than Intel. Please note before you say anything, the right hand side version is the 13600K. I know it doesn't say, that's because Afterburner doesn't work properly with Intel's graphic card, and you need to play around with it a little bit to get it to work. Okay, FSR is now turned on the Intel system. I mean, I ran the test several times over to find out what's going wrong, and I couldn't get FSR to work properly. It just didn't really do anything at all. On the AMD system, we're going a good 10 frames to 15 frames a second over having FSR turned off. Now on the AMD's RX 6600 in basic run, in ultra mode just like Arc, where it's also in ultra settings. Both systems are coming out the same, so no gains anywhere at this time. We turn FSR on, and basically again both systems are very equal, and we're basically up to 80 there, just under 100 frames a second. Running no problem at all. Okay, got the charts up. Start off with medium settings, 1650 at the bottom. On native, both systems basically come out the same setup. Again with a 6500 XT. Again, extremely close. On medium, when FSR is turned on, then there's a bit of a change. You know, on the AMD 7600 XT, XT, 7600X, the RX 6500 XT seems to suddenly fly with the FSR turned on. We went up to the 70s. I mean, leaves everything else behind really. Doesn't do it on the Intel system. It's a big difference. Don't ask why. It just seems to favour AMD setup. We go up to the ultra settings. We're looking out in the 60s, basically with the Intel Arc and the RX 6600 on both systems. And once we turn on FSR, we're both up to the 75. So basically, Arc and the 6600 are very close. I'm not going to do the ray tracing because ray tracing just annihilates everything on these cards. Far Cry 6. In this we just use low presets with or without FSR, ultra presets with or without FSR. So I decided to use the built-in benchmark for a change because the day and night cycle drives me nuts. And here we are on Nvidia 1650 low presets. The 1650 is running very consistent on both rigs. Pity doesn't say which one's what, but 76 on the left, 13600K on the right. With FSR turned on, again it's very consistent on both machines, no one's running away. AMD 7600XT. The frame rate seems to be very similar across the board. I was going to say this seems to be a 10 frame difference, but it seems to stabilise itself. Again, doesn't matter what system you buy, it's very similar. We'll turn on FSR, and it's slightly in favour of AMD's system. So otherwise, yeah, it's looking good. No slowdowns or anything anywhere to be seen. Intel's Arc A770. It looks pretty close on both systems at this time. Maybe a little bit favourable on the Intel system. Turn on FSR, and yes, it's definitely more favourable on the Intel system over AMD. Again, being Intel new to the graphic card market, not seen any glitches like flashing or anything like that. Seems to be running fine, just slow like all the other games. AMD's RX 6600. Again, very similar across the board, not much in it at all on both platforms for the AMD card. So far it's still the best card we have, and I'll remind you again, you can get this now as low as £200, making it the best budget card worth buying. Switch over to FSR, and yeah, we've got a bit of a boost. Again, it looks like possibly slightly ahead on the AMD system. But we'll find out at the end of the day when we look at the charts. But otherwise, yeah, everything's running fine, no problem. Okay, got the chart up, and the Nvidia 1650s at the bottom, followed by AMD's RX 6500 XT. I mean, platform-wise, they're literally identical regardless of what platform you have. Like, graphic cards are just capping out what they're capable of. So yeah, you can pick which one you want, no problem at all. I mean, we're doing 77 frames for the Nvidia 1650 and going up to like just under 100 frames on AMD's RX 6500 XT on low presets. And when we turn on FSR, both are going around 30 frames, which is great, can't complain with that. And that's on ultra quality setting for FSR. Intel's Arc and AMD's RX 6600 have no problem playing in an ultra preset. Both cards getting up to the 100 frames a second. It's slightly faster on the Intel platform. It's always like that on Arc. And then we finish off with the AMD RX 6600, which are topping the chart by 1 frame, literally nothing in it. But the 1% low is better on the Intel system. So yeah, we've got 128 frames versus 127. So yeah, no problem at all around for the RX 6600. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. We stay at Ultra on all cards, and we just change the upscale method throughout. See what comes out the best, really. Okay, we've got the AMD systems on the left, Intel's on the right, native DLS, native DLS. And you can see that DLS is worth a good, at least 10-15 frames a second more over the native resolution. AMD's FSR mode, going in quality mode. DLS versus SFR are very similar. Very hard to pick who's the best out of the two. It's really up to you, really. We switch over to AMD 7600XT, and we got Intel's XESS running. Didn't have on the last run because I forgot to do it on one of them. Simple as that, really. So yeah, runs quite well, no problem. Okay, now we've got DLS versus FSR. So it's DLS, FSR, DLS, FSR. AMD, Intel, left or right. We're running just over 20 frames higher than native resolution. And at least another 10 frames over XES. We'll switch over to Intel's Arc. Same as before, 1080p ultra settings with XES on or off, AMD left, Intel right. When you run an Intel graphics card, XESS runs in a special mode, giving you more performance. Again, we've got Nvidia's NIS versus AMD's FSR. AMD on the left, Intel on the right. We are running 30 frames higher, basically on both, over native resolution. Just in case you don't want to go back. AMD's RX 6600, native versus XESS, AMD on the left, Intel on the right. We're getting about an extra 10 frames out of the XESS over native resolution. Okay, NIS versus FSR, and we're doing a good 100 frames now. We're about 25 frames up, about 20 frames I think over XESS. Just in case you wanted to know. So yeah, one's no problem again on the RX 6600. As I said before, I still think it's the best budget card on the market now, especially when you can get it for £200. Okay, let's get the chart up. See at the bottom of the range is a 1650, but with upscale turned on, we can get 60 frames a second. So that's good if you want to play multiplayer. To get in there, have a nice good run. Okay, the 1% lows gets down to 40, but at least at the end of the day, you could always lower it to a medium setting preset or a high preset, or even change the upscale to get even more speed out of it. Look at AMD's RX 6500 XT. Again, I can't understand this card. One minute it's low, then it's high. I mean, it's great, especially with FSR turned on or any of the upscales. I mean, we're getting up to 90 frames a second with FSR. You have no problem at all running 1080p, 60 frames a second with this card. Then we've got Intel Arc, got up to 100 frames, 1% lows in the 70s. So again, no problem playing 60 frames, and obviously we finish off with the RX 6600, hitting the 120 barrier. No problem there at all if you want to play a good 90 to 100 frames a second on multiplayer. Don't forget, as I said in the beginning of the video, I stated that Call of Duty game updated several times. Even though there's only 2 sets of patches, there's no optimizations that I could see. So go by it as more of a guideline than a normal guideline. Just in case there is some optimization there, didn't state. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, we just use ultra settings on the graphics, and I think it's what's on the processing. high on the processing. And then we just do that all the way through. It does not include update 4, which comes out this week, and we'll do another set of tests when it does. So Nvidia 1650, basically look at it similar across the board on both platforms. There's nothing really in it. We don't have update 4, so we can't do DLS or FSR to give us a boost. So we just have to settle for that. But otherwise, yeah, she runs pretty well. It's quite an old game now, but I mean, it still looks great. At the end of the day, switch over to AMD 7600X XT. About 10 frames more than the 1650. Still get that 1% low drop. Now I've decided that's the game. I'm pretty sure it's the game. It's not as bad as when we had the 6000, the 12400 gen, 12600 gen CPU. That was just a nightmare because it froze constantly on and off. So, but yeah, it just seems to have a drop, and it never really seems to sort itself out. Bit like the update will fix that. Switch over to Intel's Arc, and we're going another 10 frames a second. Don't got that 1% low. Like I said, it just varies on a run to from one run to another. Not really right. I did notice if you leave it for about 3 or 4 minutes when you first boot up, it seems to go away. Okay, we're on the AMD's RX 6600. It seems to be running slightly better, about 10 frames better on the Intel system. So yeah, we got like the 1% low, but as you watch it as you go along, it does drop on the Intel system as well. It's just, as I said, it's just one of those bizarre games I can't work out what it is. And I've just watched the update 4 on the net, and everyone's saying it's actually worse now than what it's ever been. So yeah, this freezing bug is now not just freezing, it's crushing and God knows what. So yeah. Okay, we've got the chart up, and as always, Nvidia 1650 at the bottom, bit consistent with the frame rate and 1% loads. Got the AMD 6500 and the RX 6600. Now I don't know if it's an AMD thing, because it obviously seems, by looking at that, and at 1% loads is a bit of a nightmare. Obviously Intel's Arc come out well in the 70s, again drop 50% to the 1% lows. And yeah, obviously the RX 6600 does well at the top end, no problem on the Intel system, but AMD's one does drop on the 1% low. But I've said, if you play it long enough, the 1% low goes down on all systems, on all graphic cards. It's just part of the game, I think. Just the way it goes. It just doesn't seem to solve that freezing problem. Red Dead Redemption 2. We're either max out high or max out ultra. No VSync on anything. So we're on Nvidia's 1650, 1080p, high settings, or FSR. So it's AMD native, AMD FSR 13600, native 1360 FSR. You can see straight away we're going a good 20 frames a second on both systems with FSR on, so no problems there. We'll switch over to AMD's RX 6500 XT, and you can see native runs at bad, just like the Nvidia 1650. With the FSR turned on to quality, we're well up to 60. So yeah, the game now comes playable, and at 60 frames a second. So yeah, can't complain with FSR turned on this card. We switch over to Intel's Arc A770. We're now in Ultra preset at 1080p, so everything's now maxed out for this card. And you see on both systems we're doing 44 frames. Now I've got no FSR on show. I'll show you the reason why in a second. If you look at the grass, there's lots of flashing. I can't seem to get rid of it. It just drives you nuts. Can't play like that. AMD's RX 7600. Again, ultra setting, maxed everything out. So yeah, we're doing what, 30 frames native and just under 60 with FSR on. So if we compare this to Arc would have been way higher than the RX 6600. So Arc probably would have been the best card if it worked with FSR on, without doubt. Okay, we've got the chart up, and AMD 7500XT is the bottom of the range, followed by the 1650, both not playable in native resolution. Turn on FSR, and then we get a nice big boost. 1650 going up to 45, once it low in the 40s. So yeah, playable, and that's on the quality FSR mode. 6500XT, that gets a massive boost. We're going from like 20 frames well up to the 60s. So yeah, that done well in this game, FSR. We go up to the RX 6600, but this time in ultra quality. Again, not playable. We're under 30 frames. Yeah, you're talking about, because this is a shoot 'em up, it's not going to be very nice playing. We go up to Arc. We're in the 40s. Arc's playable in the 40s. Again, if FSR worked, I think Arc will certainly topple the scores, but it didn't. Had that flashing bug, and then we go back to the RX 6600 with FSR on, and we're doing 60 frames a second on both machines. Basically, the graphic cards are capping out. They're going as fast as they can, keep up the CPU, so you have no problem here getting the performance out of your graphic card. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We're at 1080p, all settings are ultra ultra preset, and we've got FSR on or off, depends what run we're doing. Nvidia 1650, again 1080p, ultra presets, and at the moment looks like very similar, slightly in favour by about 1 or 2 frames on the AMD system. FSR is definitely giving us a big 10-15 frames boost over the standard resolution. Got great frame time, no mega spikes anywhere, so 1% of those great as well. Switch over to AMD's RX 6500XT. Again, we've got low frame rate, again on native on both systems, and with FSR on, yeah, it is working a lot better with FSR on the AMD system, just under 50 frames. On the Intel system, FSR is not doing too well at all. Intel's Arc A770. Before you say anything, it is a 13600 car on the right. Afterburner doesn't work correctly with Intel's graphics. I didn't realise it was not working until I'd done a few runs and thought, it's not come up. But we're well in the 70s native, and we're going a good 10 frames a second more on FSR. It's favouring Intel system, like it usually does. Intel does seem to come out better. Yeah, the problem with Afterburner and Intel's graphics, it messes all the name tags up. So they're not always in the same position, so you have to rewrite them in another spot.
The markets are up and running again.
And these RX 6600, and yeah, we're doing no problem at all with the RX 6600 with or without FSR. So we're on 1080p Ultra, and we're obviously doing 83 frames, 85 frames on the Intel system, 124 frames, 121 frames on the Intel systems on with the FSR. So yeah, we have no problems running with the RX 6600. You can probably even play on 1440p, no problem at all, with this graphic card playing this game. Okay, we have the chart up. We've got two charts this time because there's too many things to put on it. So we've got a medium high chart. We've got the 1650 at the bottom, but we're in 60 frames, just dropping on the 1% low down to just under 50 frames. And the AMD's RX 6500 XT, we're up to the 70s on medium and just below 60 on the 1% low. So yeah, you can play no problem medium settings, do a bit of tweaking here and there. And obviously if you put FSR on, we're now up to the 80s on the 1650, 1% lows in the 70s. And the 6500 XT is now in the 80s, 90s. And just under 80 on the 1% low. We go to Intel Arc on the high settings. We're doing 75 frames, so no problem with the 60 frame barrier. 44 on 1% low, and with FSR on, we're up to the 90, and got that 1% low again. Same style drop coming down on the 1% low. I also included the 12600, and yes, that comes out the slowest of the three processors. Okay, now on Ultra. Got a 1650 and the RX 6500 XT at the bottom, as you would expect. With FSR on, AMD's 6500 XT doesn't seem to make much difference. Only going in for 5-10 frames at best, but it's still too low at that rating. Go over to the 1650, now that gets up to the 50s, so that can be played or Ultra, but you're probably better off going back to medium with FSR on quality because we're well up way higher at the end of the day. And then you got Intel's Arc coming at the 70 frames per second on Ultra, which is about the same as what it was on high, so it didn't do a lot of difference. But this time we're on the 13600 and 7600K, and the 1% lows are way better than what they were on the 12600. We turn on FSR, and then we get a bit of a boost, just pushing it up to 90 frames, or just under for Arc. And then we obviously have the 6600, and no problem running at Ultra, 84 and 71, basically 70 FPS for the 1% low, and obviously averaging up to 120 frames and 100 frames on the 1% low. So I have no problem there again for the RX 6600. Not quite sure what happened to the 6500 XT. It's been beat by a 4-year-old card. Bit bizarre really. Shadow of War, second one in the franchise. We'll be using Ultra settings on all cards. Full screen, 1080p. That'll be about it really. Nothing special. Let's get going. Start off with the Nvidia 1650. Quick blast. I mean, I love this game. It's a good beat 'em up game really. You can just go in there and have a good old fight for an hour and have a laugh. At the same time do the story and so and so. So yeah, if you look at the frame rate, we are running quite equal 50s on both setups, no problem. One way I take the frame rate, I take it at the lowest point in the middle of this fight, which is about 5-6 frames lower than what we got on the screen. We switch over to AMD's RX 6500 XT. Get 1% low drop on both there. More on the AMD card, AMD side. But again, it's one of those things. Happens. We are running what 65 average on AMD side and 55 on the Intel side. So there's a 10 frame difference between the two, which is quite a lot really. Just being two processors. We switch over to Intel's Arc A770. Seems to be running fine. Again, not seeing no glitches on this game with this graphic card. It's not running that bad really. We're doing what, 130 frames on both, slightly ahead on the Intel system. Otherwise, yeah, it plays fine, no problem at all on this game. Switch over to AMD's RX 6600. It's their 1080p Ultra presets, and yeah, running well. And when you look at it, it's running, well, probably looks like running probably a little bit slower than what it was running on Arc. So that makes it Arc first game. It's actually been the lead, I'd have to say. So yeah, otherwise we're doing well, going well over the 100 frames a second, playing the game. Game with, never had any problem playing this game with the RX 6600. Okay, we have the chart up, and at the bottom we have the RX 7500 XT. Just a little bit lower than the 1650, not a lot in it, but it is at the bottom of the range. And it does favour Intel. Go up to the middle, the RX 6600 is not at the top, as I said earlier, it's now in the middle. Yeah, again, still favouring Intel. Yeah, we're doing 110 versus 102, and then Arc finally wins something, 120 frames to 115, and the 1% low is good as well. So yeah, this game works very well with Arc. Total War Warhammer 3. We're on 1080p throughout. We either use medium preset or ultra preset, depending on what card we are using. Okay, got 4 screens again. This time we've got 2 different cards. We are in 1080p medium. We've got the 1650 versus the 6500 XT. Because you can see a lot, because it's like a widescreen game map show. I thought, well, I want to put 2 cards together. So yeah, it seems to favour the 1650 over the RX 6500 XT. The RX 6500 XT you can see has a bit of a 1%, well, 0.1% low, it's quite low. But yeah, it's favouring the 1650 probably by about, what, 5 frames. So yeah, it's not bad. I could use the built-in benchmark. The built-in benchmark is extremely close to this, but it doesn't have a 1% low. So I like to see a 1% low, see how it drops. So yeah, not bad at all really for both cards, being on a budget. We switch up to Ultra preset, and both cards are still playable. You can see the frame time on the RX 5600 XT is having a bit of a nightmare. Not better on 1650. Again, I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just down to the drivers being a low card and AMD not put a lot of effort in it. Like I said, one game, some games it flies on, some games it seems to have a bit of a nightmare. But now it's like 10 frames behind, up to 10 frames behind the 1650. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's still playable in the 30s. I'd probably go back to a high, if it's me, with full-size army still. So you still got top graphics, but you still got the full army size, and just get that little bit more frame rate. Try and get over the 60 barrier, maybe. So now we've got Intel Arc versus AMD's RX 6600, both at Ultra presets. It is a 13600K on the right there. I know it doesn't say, but as I said earlier, Afterburner doesn't work properly with the Intel graphic card, and it messes the settings up. So if you don't, considering I keep forgetting to change it. It doesn't show up on the screen. But yeah, the game is about 5 frames ahead on the RX 7600 over Arc. Otherwise, basically runs fine on Ultra, no problem. Yeah, can't complain really at all. The frame time is nice and smooth on both cards. Yeah, it's doing well at the end of the day. Can't complain really. Both systems are doing fine. Both graphic cards are doing fine. Does well. Okay, we have the chart up. AMD's 7600X is at the bottom of the pack, but it's still doing 60 odd frames at medium presets. And the 1650 is about 10 frames faster at medium presets. Go up to Ultra. AMD is obviously again at the bottom of the range, just over the 30s. So it is playable, yeah, on the bottom of the 30s. And Nvidia's just over the 40s. And then we go up to the big boys. Well, same big boys. The budget version of the big boys. Intel's Arc is in the 50s. Like I said, you can tweak that to get it up to the 60s. And same as the RX 6600, again in the 50s, beating Intel Arc by a few frames. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, all plays well. Now, I did look up on the net. The reason why the AMD 6500XT has a bad 1% low, because it's only got a 64-bit memory bus, which I thought was no one would use these days, but AMD decided to put a 64 memory bit bus in a modern graphic card. That's why it runs lousy, where the 1650 has a 128-bit memory bus. Okay, going by the AMD RX 6600, it does favour the AMD system on our 8 games versus 2, but we're talking about only a few frames in it at the end of the day. But yeah, according to numbers, it does favour the AMD system just by a few frames. So, what's the best platform to go by? It's quite an hard one. AM5's got to be at least £100 more than the Intel system. Well, DDR5 is way more money than DDR4. Yes, the CPUs have come down on AMD side, but the motherboards are still quite expensive over the Intel stuff. Long time cycle, we've got to say, okay, AMD's platform is new. You've got probably 4-5 years to go using the platform. Intel's platform for 13th and 12th gen has now come to an end, and they're bringing out a new version, I don't know, 6 months from now maybe. So yeah, you buy one, and obviously the next gen Intel platform I would have thought would be DDR5 only. I could be wrong, they may still support DDR4. But what I've looked on the net, it's still, budget-wise, the best platform to go by and the fastest platform to go by is AM4. Now, AMD released new processors, 4000 series, well, saying new, they come out a while ago, I just not tested them. Yeah, with those processors and some new screws for the 5000 series, they got DDR4. The motherboards are cheaper. They've got DDR4 memory cheaper. CPUs are cheaper. And if you really want the fast processor, you have got the choice of the 58X3D. And yes, going by benchmarks, it really does make a difference, that extra 3D cache. And yes, the 3D cache version will be coming out, I think it's supposed to be like the first or second week of January. For AM5, so yeah, we'll be testing some of those, and it'll probably be a big difference in a swing where to go. It may not make no difference to the budget cards, but obviously top end wise, it make a bit of a difference for playing games. So yeah, it's going to be basically down to the price of the platform really, where to go. That's about it really, that's all I can say. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one, which will be soon. I will be adding Nvidia's 2060 to it, and all the budget cards I need to add to the listing as well. Let's see how it all goes. Okay, have fun all, and if I don't get the video out before Christmas, have a good Christmas and don't forget to subscribe. Laters all.